I found texts between my girlfriend and her friend, betting how long she could steal from my company. At dinner, I raised my glass and said, 2 bets, you win. Then I showed them the proof. She froze. I pulled out my phone and called the cops. I'm 34 male and the owner of a small but growing logistics company. I built it from scratch, brick by brick, over the last 8 years. Every dollar mattered. Every risk was calculated. I never imagined the real danger wouldn't be competitors or market crashes would be the woman I trusted most. Her name's Vanessa, 29. We'd been together for 2 years. She was charming, sharp, and ambitious, so I thought. When she offered to help with some of the company's admin work, I was grateful. Payroll, invoices, vendor payments, it made sense to have someone I loved by my side handling the details. For a while, everything seemed fine, until little things started to nag at me. A missing receipt here, an oddly rounded number there. I chalked it up to clerical errors. After all, no system is perfect. But then one night, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed. Normally, I'd never pry, but the preview on the lock screen read, "How long do you think you can milk him before he notices?" My stomach dropped. Against every instinct, I opened her messages. And there it was, a thread of conversations between her and her so-called best friend. They weren't just laughing about dinners and shopping trips funded by company money. They were literally betting on how long she could steal from me before I caught on. The prize? A designer bag? I sat there, scrolling, reading the betrayal in black and white. The woman I thought might one day be my wife was treating my life's work like her personal ATM. And worse, it was entertainment for her. A game. That's when something in me shifted. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I planned. I spent the next week quietly gathering proof. Bank statements, expense reports, screenshots of every smug text. I built a folder so airtight even a lawyer would struggle to poke holes. And then I made a reservation at her favorite restaurant for Saturday night. She walked in smiling, dressed like nothing was wrong. We ordered wine, and I let her chatter about her day, about a big surprise she was planning for us. I waited until the entrees arrived. Then I lifted my glass and said, 2 bets, you win. Confusion flickered across her face. That's when I slid the folder onto the table and opened my phone.
Oh.
Her smile collapsed in real time, and I wasn't even close to done. Vanessa's fork froze halfway to her mouth. What is this? She stammered, staring at the pages I'd laid out like a deck of cards. Documentation, I replied calmly. Every cent that went missing, every invoice you padded, every message you sent laughing about how easy it was. Her face drained of color. She pushed the folder back toward me with trembling fingers. This isn't what it looks like. I can explain. I leaned back, swirling my wine. Oh, please do. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my girlfriend was stealing from my company while making bets with her friend on how long she could get away with it. You even set a timeline, 6 months. It's been 7. Her lip quivered. She glanced around the restaurant, lowering her voice. Please don't make a scene. I was just joking with her. You know how girls talk. I tapped my phone on the table. Jokes don't move money out of accounts, Vanessa. Jokes don't create phantom vendor charges. Jokes don't pay for vacations you said were on sale. She reached for my hand, but I pulled it back. Baby, I didn't mean to hurt you. Things got out of control. I was going to put it all back, I swear. I almost laughed. Put it back? With what? You spent it. Thousands. You were celebrating with your friend, like it was a sport. Do you know what this looks like legally? Her eyes widened. You wouldn't go to the cops. I met her gaze coldly. I already am. I opened my phone, my thumb hovering over the dial. That's what this dinner is. This is me giving you the courtesy of hearing it from me before the police do. She grabbed my wrist, desperation flooding her voice. No, please don't ruin my life. I made a mistake, okay? Just one mistake. I shook her hand off. This wasn't one mistake, Vanessa. This was months of conscious decisions. Lies stacked on lies. And the worst part? You weren't even sorry until you got caught. For the first time, her mask cracked completely. The charming, confident woman I thought I knew was gonna what sat across from me was frantic, cornered, and small. She started whispering apologies, promising she'd change, that she'd go to therapy, that she loved me. I let her spiral, saying nothing, just letting the weight of her own words hang in the air. Finally, I stood. "Enjoy your dinner. You'll need the strength." She grabbed at me again, but I pulled away and walked out. Behind me, I could hear her voice breaking, calling my name. Outside, the night air hit me like a shockwave. For the first time in weeks, I felt clarity. The betrayal hurt God, did it hurt, but the part of me that built my business from nothing knew this. You cut out rot before it spreads. I slid into my car, exhaled, and pressed call. "Police department, what's your emergency?" And just like that, the game was over. The officer on the other end of the line didn't even hesitate. "We'll send someone to meet you. Do you have evidence of the theft?" I glanced at the folder on the passenger seat. "I've got detailed records, transaction histories, and even text messages where she admits to it." "You'll have everything you need." "Good," the dispatcher replied. "Stay put. I'll be there shortly." I hung up and leaned back against the seat. My heart was pounding, not with regret, but with adrenaline. This was the part I thought I'd struggle with, actually turning her in. But now, after seeing her fake tears and empty promises, the decision felt clean, necessary. 15 minutes later, flashing lights pulled into the lot. 2 officers stepped out, calm and professional. I handed over the folder, explaining what I'd discovered. They flipped through the pages, eyebrows raising higher with each screenshot and bank statement. "This is thorough," one of them said, almost impressed. "You've built a stronger case than half the investigations we get handed." I gave a humorless laugh. "That's what happens when you run a business. You learn to track every penny." Fortunately, I had to use those skills on someone I trusted most. The officer nodded. "We'll need to speak with her directly." "Where is she now?" I gestured, toward the restaurant. Through the window, I could still see Vanessa hunched over the table, her phone pressed to her ear, probably calling her friend, maybe even rehearsing excuses. She looked so small in that moment, and yet it didn't soften me. Not anymore. "Inside," I said flatly. The officers thanked me and headed in. I stayed outside, leaning against my car, arms folded. A few minutes later, I saw the scene unfold through the glass. One officer approached her table, badge flashing. Vanessa's head snapped up, her face draining white. She started shaking her head, gesturing wildly, trying to explain. The officer remained calm, speaking firmly. When they finally stood, guiding her toward the exit, she caught sight of me. Our eyes locked through the glass. She mouthed, "Please." I didn't move. As they stepped out into the parking lot, her voice broke into the night air. "Baby, please. You don't understand. I'll fix this. I'll pay it back." The officer placed a hand on her shoulder. You need to calm down. You'll have a chance to explain everything down at the station." She twisted toward me one last time, tears streaking down her face. "You can't do this to me." I exhaled slowly, my voice steady. "No, Vanessa, you did this to yourself." They escorted her to the squad car, and I watched as the door shut with a dull thud. The sound was final, like the closing of a chapter. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, my chest felt lighter. I wasn't just walking away from betrayal. I was reclaiming my life. The next morning, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Texts, missed calls, notifications. It felt like the entire city had woken up just to talk about Vanessa. Word spreads fast when someone gets hauled out of a restaurant in handcuffs. The group chat we shared with mutual friends was on fire. Screenshots of her arrest were already circulating, paired with a mix of disbelief and gossip. One friend wrote, "No way. Vanessa stealing? This has to be a mistake." Another quickly replied, "Not a mistake. She's been bragging about free dinners for months." By noon, her so-called partner in crime, Samantha, finally spoke up. Or rather, tried to. "This isn't what you think. It was just a joke." I didn't even have to say anything. The group tore her apart. A joke. Betting on how long you could steal from someone's company. "That's fraud, Sam, not a prank." Others chimed in, disgust dripping from every message. For once, I didn't feel the need to defend myself. They were doing it for me. The truth had its own momentum now. Later that day, I got a call from Vanessa's number. For a split second, I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. "Hello." Her voice cracked on the other end. It's me, please. I just got out on bail. You have to believe me. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I kept my tone even. You didn't mean to steal? Or you didn't mean to get caught? Silence. Just her shaky breathing. Look, she finally whispered. If you drop the charges, I can fix this. I'll pay you back. I'll do whatever it takes. I let her words hang in the air before responding. Vanessa, this isn't just about money. It's about trust. You didn't just steal cash, you stole from the people who work for me, who rely on me. You gambled with all of our futures for fun. Her voice broke into sobs. I love you. Doesn't that count for something? That one actually made me laugh, cold and bitter. Love doesn't look like draining my accounts and making bets with your friends. Whatever this was, it wasn't love. I hung up before she could respond. An hour later, Samantha messaged me directly. Can we talk, please? I didn't think it would go this far. I swear I didn't take any money. I stared at the screen, shaking my head. They were scrambling now, the walls closing in. It wasn't about loyalty or friendship anymore. It was survival. That night, as I reviewed my emails, I got confirmation from my lawyer. The case was moving forward. Vanessa and Samantha weren't just dealing with my anger anymore. They were facing real legal consequences. And for the first time, I realized I didn't need to chase revenge. I just needed to step back and let their own actions finish the job. The first court date came quicker than I expected. Walking into the courthouse, I felt a strange calm, almost detached. Vanessa sat across the room with her lawyer, eyes red, hair disheveled, like the weight of everything had finally settled. Samantha, on the other hand, looked like she was trying to disappear into her chair, avoiding eye contact with anyone. When the charges were read aloud, fraud, theft, conspiracy, the room went silent. That silence was heavier than any gavel. Their attorneys scrambled, trying to paint the whole thing as a misunderstanding, a lapse in judgment. It was a game, Vanessa's lawyer argued, a foolish bet between friends, nothing more. But then the evidence came out. Every message, every screenshot, every recorded transfer of funds. Projected on a giant screen, their words hung there like a noose, tightening around their necks. The jury didn't need convincing. The prosecution highlighted how Vanessa had used company money multiple times to fund dinners, spa visits, and even part of a trip. Samantha was her cheerleader, egging her on, betting on how long she could get away with it before I noticed. They thought they were clever, untouchable. I glanced at Vanessa. For the first time, she didn't look like the confident, charming woman I had fallen for. She looked small, cornered, stripped of all the masks she wore so well. When court adjourned for the day, my lawyer leaned over and said, "This is open and shut. The jury isn't on their side. You don't even have to testify if you don't want to." That night, I went home and sat alone at the dining table. The same spot where, just weeks ago, I had raised my glass and exposed them both. I thought about everything I'd lost: time, trust, peace of mind. But then I realized something important. What I gained was far greater. I had clarity now. I knew exactly who belonged to my life and who didn't. Vanessa tried calling me again. This time, I didn't pick up. Her voicemails piled up, full of tears, apologies, promises she could never keep. I deleted them without listening to the end. The next morning, I ran into an old friend, David, who knew about the situation. He clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You did the right thing. Most people would have looked the other way. You cut the poison out." That stuck with me, because he was right. Meanwhile, word around town was brutal. Vanessa and Samantha weren't just dealing with the courts, they were dealing with social exile. Friends stopped returning calls. Invitations vanished. Their reputations, once carefully curated, were now shredded beyond repair. For me, it was like watching a storm move on after tearing everything apart. The destruction was real, but so was the sunlight breaking through. As I prepared for the next court session, I knew one thing for certain. Their downfall was no longer my responsibility. Justice would take care of the rest. The final day in court felt surreal. I sat in the back row, letting the attorneys do their work, watching as the jury filed in with solemn faces. Vanessa kept dabbing her eyes with a tissue, and Samantha stared straight ahead, lips pressed tight like she was bracing for impact. When the foreman read the verdict guilty on all counts, the air seemed to shift. It wasn't dramatic, no gasps or shouting, just a quiet acceptance that their game was finally over. The judge scheduled sentencing for the following month, but even without the official punishment, the damage was done. Their futures were sealed. As we walked out of the courthouse, Vanessa's family stood huddled near the doors. Her mother looked broken, her father angry but defeated. Our eyes met for a brief second, and in that moment, I could see they weren't just furious at me for exposing their daughter. They were furious at her for betraying everything she'd been given. They didn't speak to me. They didn't have to. The silence said it all. In the weeks leading up to sentencing, I rebuilt. I poured energy into my company, focused on projects that had been gathering dust, and reconnected with friends I'd neglected while drowning in Vanessa's chaos. Slowly, I felt the pieces of myself click back into place. Vanessa tried one last time, writing me a long letter from her lawyer's office. She called it a confession, but really it was a plea. She wrote about being lost, about feeling pressure to keep up an image, about making mistakes she never thought would catch up with her. She begged for forgiveness, for a second chance. I read every word carefully, then set the letter on fire in my backyard grill. Watching the paper curl and blacken, I realized forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. It meant moving on without carrying the weight of her choices. When sentencing day came, I didn't even sit inside the courtroom. I waited in the hallway while my lawyer handled the formalities. 30 minutes later, he walked out and told me the result. Vanessa and Samantha both got probation, heavy restitution, and community service. No jail time, but their records were stained, their reputations obliterated. Strangely, I wasn't disappointed. Justice isn't always about how many years someone spends behind bars, it's about accountability. And they had to live with the consequences day in and day out. That was enough for me. That evening, I poured myself a glass of scotch and sat on my balcony. The city lights stretched out in front of me, a reminder that life moves forward no matter what storms you endure. I thought back to the dinner where I raised that glass and toasted 2 bets. You win. Only now, I realized I had been wrong. She didn't win. I did. Not because I destroyed her, but because I walked away free, clear, and stronger than before. And for the first time in months, I felt at peace. If you've made it this far, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more.